Hello, my name is Robert Hancock. I wrote a book called Captain Kranky's Music Store. It's about a young boy named Christopher who simply went into a music store to get his flute fixed. But what a store it was. It looked just like a ship sailing down the street, and the owner looked just like a sea captain. Let's find out more about Christopher, the sea captain, and the music store. At Captain Kranky's music store, the cranky captain barked and roared, giving the orders of the day. We must be shipshape in every way. And indeed, things were shipshape down at Captain Kranky's music store. The windows were round, portholes he called them, and the floors weren't floors at all, but were called decks. As a matter of fact, the entire store looked like a ship sailing down the street. Can you imagine that? Captain Kranky had always wanted to be a ship's captain ever since he worked down at the docks where ships were born. And he helped them to get born by providing the music to ease their entry into their new wet world of the sea. He was the band leader there, and every time a new ship was about to be launched, he would direct the band to play. Stirring the skies with his baton, he would chart a course for the tubas and give the all clear for the bass drum to go boom, boom, boom. He remembered all of those ships slipping into the sea, and not one of them had Kranky on board as its captain. But all of that didn't matter now, for Captain Kranky finally had a ship of his own. He built it himself and opened a music store in it. And while his ship did not float, he finally was a 100% sea captain. Prepare to weigh anchor and get underway, and that was how Kranky started each day. Captain Kranky barked out his orders with such authority that the walls shook and trembled. But there was no one to follow his orders, no chorus of "Aye, aye, sir," and that took some of the fun out of being captain, so he decided to hire a crew. He searched near and far, high and low, and every morning he would climb up to the crow's nest with his spyglass. From way up there, he could practically see forever. Surely he would be able to find some seaworthy crew member. Early one morning, as he searched with his spyglass, he spotted a small boy who was staring into one of the ship's windows. "Ahoy there! I'm Captain Kranky. You're here about the job, aren't you? What's your name? How long have you worked on ships? And when can you start?" The little boy was so startled by this strange-looking man that all he wanted to do was clutch his flute tightly to his chest. "Well, I'm waiting," the captain said impatiently. "My name is Christopher, and I was just looking at the flute in your window. Mine needs fixing." The captain took the flute from Christopher and examined the rubber bands which strained to do their job, and then at the tape which was wrapped around one end. He pressed on one of the keys and handed it back. "First mate, Christopher, this flute doesn't need fixing, it needs replacing." "But I don't have enough money to buy a new one," Christopher said sadly. "Not to worry. As first mate of this ship, you will have sufficient funds to purchase that very flute in the window. You can start tomorrow afternoon." Well, you would have to admit that Captain Kranky and his ship were pretty strange and raised a number of questions for Christopher. What was this ship doing in the middle of the street? And why was it filled with musical instruments? And then there was Captain Kranky, a 100% sea captain, complete with cocked hat, navy blue suit, braided shoulders, and a fistful of medals which tugged at his coat. It was all very confusing for Christopher. And while he unquestionably needed a new flute, he wasn't sure working for Captain Kranky was the answer. At school, his music teacher declared his flute to be a public hazard just because the rubber bands exploded and flew off in every direction. While no one was injured, it was clear that he would need to go back to Captain Kranky's music store. When Christopher went inside, he found Captain Kranky standing behind a huge wooden wheel raised upon a platform in the middle of the store. All that could be seen of the captain was his cocked hat, one eye squinting, and where the other eye should have been, there was a spyglass, which he used to keep an eye on everything in the ship. He swung the spyglass to the left, and then to the right, and then round and round in circles until he spotted Christopher standing in the doorway. "Welcome aboard, First Mate Christopher." "Good morning, Mr. Kranky. How are you today?" "I'd like to talk to you about the flute." At this quite harmless remark, Christopher saw a dramatic change come over Captain Kranky. His face turned red, redder than the furry lining of a violin case, and beads of sweat instantly appeared on his forehead and trickled down onto one of his medals, which set it shimmering. It looked like Captain Kranky would explode. But before he did, he sputtered, "That's Captain Kranky, not Mr. Kranky, and don't you forget it." But, was all Christopher could say before Captain Kranky interrupted him. "And you are the crew. Have you got that, First Mate Christopher?" But before Christopher could say another word, Captain Kranky disappeared into another room. When he returned, he was carrying an armful of papers which were all rolled up. He spread them out on a large wooden table. They were maps, not of some foreign land or seas, but maps of Captain Kranky's music store, showing every room and passageway. "This is my ship, the SV Kranky," he said, puffing out his chest with oh so much pride. He pointed to each of the little squares on the map and described one after another, which left Christopher hopelessly confused. As Kranky described the ship, he pointed in the direction of what he described and occasionally handed the spyglass to Christopher so that he could get a better look. After almost an hour, Captain Kranky's guided tour was almost complete except for one small detail. "Know what that is?" Captain Kranky asked as he stabbed his finger at one small rectangle on the map. First Mate Christopher didn't have any idea what it was, but figured it must have been awfully important because Captain Kranky couldn't conceal his excitement. "It's the ship's storeroom. In there you will find every cleaning product known to man, everything you need to make this place shipshape, spotless, smudgeless. It's all here. Put it to good use. I'll be holding inspection shortly." With that, Captain Kranky left Christopher in a room full of miracle cleaners. He scanned the neatly stacked rows of brightly colored boxes which stretched from floor to ceiling, and he could clearly see that these were not ordinary cleaning agents. One of them cleaned like a tornado, devastating any dirt in its path. Another unleashed a muscle-bound strongman to do all of your housework, while magicians and wizards were there too, performing a variety of cleaning miracles. There were so many choices that Christopher's head began to spin. You can hear the glisten when you listen. You feel the sparkle and the sheen. All this bluster about luster. Where's the one that makes things clean? Christopher didn't know where to start, so he just grabbed an armful of cleaners, polishes, and a mop and bucket, and set out to begin to make the place shipshape. First he started with the dusting and the sweeping, and then the mopping and the polishing. But the harder he worked, the more work there seemed to be. He felt overwhelmed and sad, and whenever he felt that way, he just picked up his flute and played a happy tune. But his flute was broken, and that made him even sadder. Just as a couple of tears snuck down from his eyes, he saw the new flute in the store window. He went over to it and after some hesitation, picked it up and began to play that happy tune. Soon the room seemed brighter, maybe even cleaner, and now everything seemed possible. He returned to his cleaning. Furiously he went at the brass instruments, first a once-over with a dust cloth, then several applications of polish, and finally heaping portions of elbow grease, and shazam, he made them shine. There was an uncooperative trombone, and he made that shine too. He worked very hard on all of the instruments, so hard he thought that his fingers would fall off. And just as Christopher was about to work on the accordion, he heard the click of some boots and a captain's salute. Kranky had ordered inspection. The trombones and trumpets must glitter and glisten so he could see his reflection. "Inspection ho!" the captain bellowed so loudly that it made the bass fiddle hum. Again Captain Kranky was standing behind the ship's wheel, but this time he wore his crisp white inspection uniform, which made him seem more splendid, more magnificent, more wonderful than before. The very wonderful Captain Kranky stepped down from the platform and moved toward First Mate Christopher. With each step that he took, his starched pants went crinkle, crackle, crunch. "First Mate Christopher, are you ready for inspection?" It certainly sounded like a question, but when Christopher began to explain about his progress, Captain Kranky cut him off. He didn't want to hear anything other than, "Aye, aye, sir." Captain Kranky marched off toward the brass instruments. Crinkle, crackle, crunch. Standing before a tuba, Kranky shot a finger skyward as if to plug a leak in the ceiling. Then he dropped it down to the edge of the tuba's mouth and ran it around the inside rim. He examined his glove, and it was still pure white. He repeated this strange procedure for the trumpets, trombones, saxophones, and all the other brass instruments. They too were spotless. All through the stringed instrument section, Captain Kranky's white gloves remained white. By the time Christopher thought he detected a trace of approval, and just when it seemed like things to be looking up, Christopher noticed that Captain Kranky had brushed up against a dirty accordion. Christopher was horror-stricken. How could he prevent Captain Kranky from seeing that awful smudge on his magnificent white coat? But it was too late to worry about the coat because Captain Kranky had just inspected a pair of kettle drums. His gloves looked like he had been clutching onto a chocolate bar during a hot summer afternoon. "Christopher," the captain said in a low, unsteady voice. "Christopher?" His voice grew a little louder and started to tremble. Again his face turned very red, and the gold buttons strained at his jacket. The veins in his neck bulged, and Christopher was sure that something awful was about to happen. "You all right, Captain Kranky?" Christopher asked with genuine concern, but "Arr! Arr!" was all that Captain Kranky could say, and he growled and muttered and went crinkle, crackle, crunch, all the way to his room in the back of the store. The door slammed, and an uneasy quiet settled in. It was broken by a roar that came from behind the door. "Christopher!" Christopher slid cautiously across the highly polished floor and ever so carefully opened the door to Captain Kranky's room. Inside he found the captain dressed only in his underwear. His fancy white uniform, now soiled and in a shameful condition, was piled in a heap on the floor. At first Captain Kranky only growled and sputtered, pointing to the soiled uniform. "There will be another inspection tomorrow at 5 o'clock. You will be ready, won't you?" For the rest of that afternoon and even that night, as he was slipping off to sleep, Christopher thought about that very question. Would he be ready? He thought he had done all that he could. He had polished till his fingers glowed, and yet even in his dreams he kept polishing, polishing, and polishing some more until he became sure that he would not be able to finish all of the cleaning without some help. And just as always, when things seemed their worst, he picked up his flute. Placing a new rubber band on it, he began to play his happy tune. It always made him feel better, but this time something strange and wonderful happened. He imagined that the musical instruments had come to life and were now cleaning themselves, polishing and buffing too. And before long, each and every one was sparkling like never before. It was clear that they were ready to play. So Christopher raised his flute as high as he could, and just as he was about to lead them all in song, there came a crinkle, crankle, crunch, followed by a large dark cloud of gloom. The gloom was everywhere, you could barely see, and what you could see was pretty gloomy. Gloom filled every room. It lurked inside the closets. It even filled the Frigidaire and snuck inside his pockets. Christopher failed the inspection. He couldn't believe it. He was absolutely certain that he had the cleanest trumpets this side of the Mississippi River. He was so sure that he had made everything shipshape. No matter how much cleaning he did, Captain Kranky was never satisfied. Although Christopher didn't know what was wrong, he had a sneaking suspicion something wasn't right. Like a quiet high-top sneaker that doesn't make a sound, suspicion started sneaking slowly, softly, all around. It snuck up on young Christopher and whispered in his ear. It told him about music and tunes he liked to hear. It started him to thinking about Captain Kranky's store, where music counted less than a highly polished floor. He knew he must do something, and must do something soon, to tickle Frankie's fancy and make him change his tune. That was it. Christopher had hit upon the answer. It wasn't that Captain Kranky had to change his tune, he had to get a tune. Why, he didn't have any kind of tune at all, and that was strange for the owner of a music store. Everybody ought to have a tune, and Captain Kranky was no exception. He needed a tune of his own, one you can whistle, one you can hum, one you can sing at the top of your lungs, a toe-tapping tune in hand-clapping time, some nonsensical words that just happened to rhyme. Yes, he needed a tune, one he could whistle while he worked, one to cheer him up when he was feeling down, one he could hum so he wouldn't get the grumpies, those little feelings that grab the corners of your mouth and turn your smile upside down. But as the days went by, Christopher found it very difficult to get Captain Kranky to adopt a new tune. Whenever he whistled, hummed, or played some happy tunes on his flute, the notes just seemed to bounce off of Captain Kranky. It soon became apparent that simple little tunes would not be enough. What Captain Kranky needed were big tunes with cymbals, kettle drums, stringed instruments, French horns, the full orchestration. Christopher knew that he could not do this all by himself, so he got some help from his friends in the school band. They practiced and practiced and practiced some more until they were finally ready to play for Captain Kranky. When that day arrived, they very carefully snuck inside the store and began to tune their instruments ever so quietly. But they were not quiet enough, and Captain Kranky stormed into the room. Gloom quickly followed and spread throughout. Just as it was about to engulf Christopher, he pointed his flute at the kettle drums and they began to roar. The gloom retreated slightly, revealing a tuba to which Christopher immediately pointed. Humpa, humpa! From the tuba made the gloom retreat even further. And more instruments joined in. The gloom retreated further and further. And just when it looked like happy tunes were winning, a rubber band from Christopher's flute launched at Captain Kranky's nose. Ah! He screamed. First mate Christopher, I demand an explanation for this. Christopher lowered his flute and then his head, and everything got really quiet, gloomy, and bleak. If ever there was a time for a happy tune, this was it. So he quickly turned to his friends and yelled, "Let's really hit it." At first, the tune seemed to have no effect on the snarling, growling Captain Kranky, but they played on. And after several tunes, someone pointed to Captain Kranky's foot. What's that? Could it be? Yes, it was. His toes were a-tapping, and fingers were a-snapping, and Kranky was cranky no more. For gone was the gloom, replaced by a tune, Captain Kranky's music.